3 meat processing plants have now been shut down due to COVID-19. The latest is a pork processing plant, Smithfield, up in Sioux Falls. Time magazine reports the U.S. is perilously close to meat shortage after major plant closes over coronavirus. Let me tell you what. It's hard to know if things are getting better or worse because there's a few days where everything feels like it's getting better. There are a few days where everything feels like it's getting worse. I recently went to a Home Depot to pick up some much needed supplies, and they wouldn't let us in without masks on. We walked to the front and there was a sign saying public ordinance, you can't be in public without a mask. They stopped us like 30 feet away and they're like, stop. So I went back to my vehicle and took a shoelace and a shirt and made a mask. You can see it on my Instagram. Follow me, instagram.com/Timcast. It was a silly looking mask, but it was good enough. This made me feel like things were way worse than I had realized because I got to be honest, I haven't gone out a whole lot. You know, we used to go out periodically, go to the store, pick up, groceries every other day or so. But we've ended up getting, a week's supply of groceries at a time, maybe 2 weeks even. And we haven't gone out. So I went out for the first time in like a week and a half or 2 weeks. And I was kind of shocking to see almost no vehicles, to see all of the businesses are closed. There were many businesses that said they were going to do curbside delivery. No, they're closed now. And when I went to one hardware store, closed. I went to Home Depot. They were open, but only for a short period. Made me feel like things are getting a whole lot worse. Look, I know people get mad. They say you're either fear-mongering or you're downplaying. I don't know what to tell you. I'm going to tell you how I feel. We're seeing farmers dump million. Well, let me just make sure I get this story correct, this number correct. 3.7 million gallons of milk is being dumped every day. Farmers are plowing fresh vegetables back into the soil because restaurants, hotels, and schools have closed due to the coronavirus. Yet at the same time, we are seeing food shortages at our local stores because they can't get the food there. The economy is crushed. And, a lot of people have talked about how, don't worry about the economy, things like this. We see the memes. Oh, no, the economy. I'll tell you what, man. The economy is the system in place that manages how food and other resources get delivered into cities. And it is an extensive network. It is very important and very powerful. And right now, because people don't have access to money, because they've been cut out of the economy, they're going to food banks. Food banks are running out of food. Where do you think these people will go next when they don't have food? Do you think these millions of people seeking food will simply just sit in their house and say, guess I'll die? No, they'll get food however they can get food. There's another problem, though. Farmers dumping food, meat factories shutting down. We are perilously close to a meat shortage. Then what happens? I honestly don't know. But I will tell you that as much as people want to act like things are getting better, maybe they are. Maybe I'm just focused on the negative. Take all of that in consideration. I don't know. But this story just came out the other day. America should be ready for 18 months of shutdowns in long, hard road ahead, warns the Fed's Neil Kashkari. He is the head of, I believe, the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis. I'm not going to pretend like this guy's the most important guy in the world. But look, he's not the only one saying 18 months. Trump has said Easter. He said, we're going to get things up by Easter. Everybody yelled. He said, okay, April 30th. Everybody yelled. So maybe by May. Some states have a lockdown indefinitely. Some states have a lockdown until June. I have no idea what we can expect, but I'll tell you what. I'm pretty worried. I guess that's all I can really say. Let me read you this story. And then I want to tell you the gist of this, which you've probably already surmised from or you understand from the title of this video. I think we're going to see the establishment of an authoritarian command economy. I don't want to call it communism necessarily, but listen, if people are going to food banks because they have no cash, farmers are dumping food, there's going to be a main centralized authoritarian push to mandate the food be delivered from the farms to the food banks to be given out for free. They say, hey, if the food's at the farms, just give the food to the food banks and then people will have food, right? But it's taking volunteers to deliver that food. How long until it's a mandate to deliver that food? How long do the farms run out of food and then have to be, by mandate, supplied with the basic necessities to grow more food? Eventually, you're looking at a command economy where everything is just under mandate due to emergency. And if we're talking about 18 months in lockdown, seems probable. Winter, 18 months? We're going to go through winter in this? Man, I hope you guys are ready because this does not sound good. Look, I turned on the TV And Trump whispers sweet nothings into my ear. Things are getting better. Things are going to be great. Be hopeful. And I can respect that. The last thing you want is a bunch of desperate, terrified people running around looting stores. We're seeing commercial robberies spiking in New York. We're seeing a breakdown. We're getting dangerously close to a breakdown of social order. We really are. You might not want to hear it. You might not believe it. But look at this. Hundreds of ATVs and motorcycles were racing through Manhattan streets. People are just having fun with it. No cars, no cops. Around 20% of the NYPD is out sick. Many probably don't want to even get involved because people are dying. Look, every day news organizations list the people who worked with them who died of COVID. And yeah, there's another story. It's sad. A photographer lost his life. Young guy, a youngish guy. I shouldn't say youngish. He was in his 40s. So middle-aged guy. What happens? Well, the police are out. There's no food. People stop caring. They start doing what they want to do. Lawlessness. Now, I will be fair and say these ATV cruises and motorcycles, they do this at night. They do it in Chicago. They do it all over. But this apparently is during the middle of the day throughout Manhattan, which is kind of unheard of. Let's read the story and figure out what's going on with the food shortage. But listen, I'm not gonna do, I do those promos for excuse me, for those that food company. I'm not gonna do it now. But because I sincerely mean it when I say I hope you have taken some precautions to prepare for the food shortages that may come. May. I mean, we're really close. And, we've got a problem with logistics. And now we've got a problem with delivery. Well, logistics, meaning the delivery from the farm straight to the shops. But now it's actually supply itself. Time magazine says the world's biggest pork producer is shuttering a major U.S. plant indefinitely after a coronavirus outbreak among employees, with the company warning that closures across the country are taking American meat supplies perilously close to the edge of shortfalls. Smithfield Food will idle its Sioux Falls, South Dakota pork processing plant facility, which accounts for 4% to 5% of U.S. production, the company said in a statement Sunday. The move comes after state officials reported more than 200 cases of COVID-19 for plant employees, adding to a spike in infections that's seen hundreds of American meat workers get sick. Plants have been forced to shutter or reduced output. The closure of this facility, combined with a growing list of other protein plants, that's what they call it, protein plants, that have shuttered across the country, is pushing our country perilously close to the edge in terms of our meat supply. Smithfield Chief Executive Officer Ken Sullivan said in a statement, "It is impossible to keep our grocery stores stocked if our plants are not running." I believe right now that's the third plant that is shut down. So if you're someone who loves meat, I got bad news for you. Y'all are going to go vegan. But yep, it's just the way it's going to be. You know why? Plant goods, dried goods can last a long time, and meat and dairy spoil. And as much as you might enjoy those things, I certainly love me a nice chicken sandwich with melty cheddar cheese and all the good fixins. Rice and beans can be stored away for a couple of years. So when things get bad, don't be surprised if your meat is gone and you can't do anything about it. They say while it's unclear whether the meat employee infections have anything to do with the workplaces, the news exposes the vulnerability of global supply chains that are needed to keep grocery stores stocked after panic buying left shelves empty. Yeah, well, people were panic buying because of this. You know what's interesting? There was in New York City, Bill de Blasio said, no, everybody's scared of coronavirus. Go out, party, do your thing. And I understand what he was trying to do. But it's interesting that people in New York were worried about the coronavirus, and he was downplaying it and trying to encourage them to ignore their fears. The people knew that things were getting bad, and they were encouraged by Bill de Blasio to ignore their fears. Many of these people may have gotten sick and died already because New York's been hit very, very hard. And that's really unfortunate. I mean, it's not just de Blasio, Cuomo, Newsom, all of these governors, and Donald Trump as well. I don't think no one saw this coming. The World Health Organization and China deserve most of the blame on this one, for sure. The reason I'm bringing up Bill de Blasio is not because I want to drag the guy. I really do want him to succeed, and I hope he does. New York is in desperate need of help. I want to point out that when people rush and start, panic buying, I guess, there's a difference between a realistic, rational fear and appropriate supply gathering and panic buying, for sure. But they call it all panic buying. I saw these photos and videos. People were buying a regular stock of groceries. Now, the people who loaded up their shopping cart full of toilet paper with like 10 packages, yeah, that's panic buying. The people who had a gallon of milk, a thing of eggs, and some bread and went to the store, and there were huge lines of people, that's not panic buying necessarily. They were like, I better go to the grocery store and get the supplies I need. Well, now these people are going to food banks, and it's not necessarily because of supply shortage. It's because they lost their jobs. The economy is very important. And as much as people want to rag on it, things are getting bad. We're seeing suicides. I'm not going to I don't want to show these people. I want to respect their privacy. But yes, people are freaking out. Look, many of us probably don't get it. I was thinking about this the other day. I got a decent sized house, regular size house. I got a backyard. We've got some skate stuff set up in the backyard so we can have some physical activities. Got a little fire pit going. It's really nice. We got a little table so we get to hang out outside in the beautiful sunlight with outside. We got video games. We got a big old TV with a PlayStation on it. It's very nice. Maybe regular, suburban. Maybe it's something you're familiar with. Like, yeah, I got a backyard too. People in Chicago, for instance, they have backyards. They can go outside. People in New York, however, and in big cities like downtown or like in the city proper, they don't. They're trapped in little cubicles. They can't go outside. Let me show you something, man. Let me show you how freaky things are getting. Now, this is the UK, and we know the UK is a nightmare state, sure. Central Community Team, Central Beds CPT tweeted, "If you think that going for a picnic in a rural location, no one will find you, don't be surprised if an officer appears from the shadows. We are covering the whole country, urban and rural. Stay home, save lives, protect the NHS." These people, these are Nazis. I'm going to go there. I'm going to play that game. Okay, they're not really, but man, this is the most disgusting, despicable thing I have ever seen. If you think being outside in isolation in the middle of nowhere is safe, we're coming for you, they said. Now, look, we know the UK is a nightmare state already. I'm bringing this up because for my neighbors across the pond, I mourn for you. For us Americans, we better make sure it doesn't come to our shores, and it is coming. Some dude paddleboarding, minding his own business, getting arrested. Some dude running down the beach, minding his own business, getting arrested. There's a big difference between going out and having a party and someone in the middle of nowhere minding their own business. But they say, we're coming for you. That's how bad it's getting. I wonder if one of the reasons they're enforcing this lockdown is not necessarily because of the pandemic, but because of a fear of civil unrest. In New York City, stores have started boarding up their windows. Commercial burglaries, looting, is up 75%. Now, maybe looting is a bit strong, but let me tell you this. A commercial burglary on any given day, I call it a commercial burglary. Somebody breaks into a store, steals a TV. I get it. When you have a pandemic, the city is locked down and 20% of the police force is out sick and the city is crippled, then people start going into shops and taking things. Yeah, I call that looting. I think that's the main reason that they're so desperate to keep people in their homes. Sure, there's a pandemic. You don't want to get sick. I don't want to get sick, man. People I know have gotten this. It does not look pretty. They could have permanent lung damage. And I've seen the stories of people at these news organizations and other places that are losing their lives. I have heard the anecdotes from friends and friends of friends about their family members dying from this. I've seen Facebook posts that have shocked me. In the beginning, everything felt so far away, but every day it feels like it's getting closer and closer to home. So I'll tell you what, there's a lot of people who think it's not really happening or the numbers are exaggerated. Then why are these factories shutting down when this outbreak happens? I don't know what to tell you, man. What I can say is the authoritarian nightmare will be upon us. Now check this out. Over in Vancouver, they've been protesting this. Dan Dix, at Dan Dix PFT on Twitter, tweets protests to end the lockdown happening now in Vancouver. Dan Dix is an independent journalist and, he posts things on social media. You can check him out. But he's got this from Vancouver where you can see it's a small gathering. It's like 20 people. I don't think it's very large at all. But these people are doing this because of the things like we've seen already. People getting arrested for minding their own business. And people have said, you want a boogaloo, this is how you get a boogaloo. And I know Media Matters and Right Wing Watch don't like the term boogaloo. They say it's right-wing propaganda or some like a meme or whatever. No, it just means breakdown of social order and civil unrest or civil war. You want to start locking up people for picnicking in the middle of nowhere. Don't be surprised when protests happen. And when protests happen, don't be surprised when COVID spreads to the protesters. You also had people on Easter refusing to back down and holding their worship ceremonies. I don't blame them. It's their First Amendment right. So we got a serious problem. Now, there is a moral conundrum here, and I will bring it up with a tweet from David Pakman. He responded to Dan Dix by saying, it was only a matter of time until this crap started. 1, Are you an infectious disease doctor or public health expert? If yes, participate in guideline formulation. If no, follow the advice of infectious disease doctors and public health experts. I actually agree. I agree with David. You're not going to see me go outside and protest, at least for now. For now, look. I think there's a happy medium between do I trust the government and do I resist, and the doctors aren't part of the government. I mean, sort of. Look, if a bunch of doctors are saying it's unlike anything I've ever seen, I'm going to take their word for it. So I think protesting right now, at least look, they're in Canada, whatever. I don't know what the rights are in Canada, how that works. If you want to worship, if you want to go out and protest, hey, man, you got a First Amendment. For now, I'm not going to do that. You know why? Here's how I always explain it to activists. There's a lot of people who believe authority doesn't exist. They're wrong. Authority does exist. There are a lot of people who just blindly obey anyone who claims to be in a position of authority. That's also stupid. During Occupy Wall Street, I had people say, the cops have no real authority, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, hold on. They do. Okay, but there's a difference between arbitrary authority and real authority, right? When a cop walks up to you during a protest and says, that's a frozen zone, and they did this in New York, I say, oh, F off, frozen zone. You made that up. They literally made it up. You can't tell me I can't stand here. I have a First Amendment right to do so. Now, if they say something like, we have reasonable suspicion that someone has committed a crime, we received a complaint, then they can detain you. Then there's like a legal system in place, not perfect. They can't just walk up to you and enforce arbitrary things. You can actually sue, but it's complicated. But let me tell you what. If a cop came up to me and started spitting out some random nonsense, and I knew it was nonsense, look, I'm going to be strategic about it. If they want to falsely arrest somebody, then fine. But, you don't want to get into a fight. You do, within reason, have to obey the officers. And then you fight after the fact of the legal system. You don't always win. You don't. The system is powerful. But I'll tell you what. If a doctor came up to me, if I'm out in the middle of nowhere, let's say I'm in the middle of New York, minding my own business, walking down the street, and there's a doctor and he says, you, come with me now, I'm a doctor, that man right there is dying, I'd be like, okay, that's authority. A doctor who let's say he's like in his uniform and he's got the badge and there's a guy spazzing on the ground, like something I can really see and trust. I'm like, all right, you're the doctor. Or a better example would be like, you see someone get injured and they're on the ground bleeding and the doctor says, you come here and put your hands here, do it now. Not going to ask questions. That's authority. We recognize the common good. So right now, we have doctors telling us this thing is bad. The problem is, while I will trust the doctors and I personally don't want to get sick, as the government continues its overreach and its arbitrary enforcement, you will get more protests. As food shortages start to arise and people can't get access to food, you will see worse than protests. You will see looting, rioting, vandalism. It'll get bad. So for now, I respect the idea that David Pakman is putting forward because I do agree, but I also think it's silly to deride or insult Dan Dix and these other protesters. I don't know if he's actually trying to deride Dan Dix. Dan's just reporting on it. So journalism is an essential function. Yes, they're allowed to be out doing their thing. Be careful, though, social distance and all that good stuff. But I wouldn't call it crap. I would just say it was only a matter of time until we saw this. There's no reason to deride what people are doing. I don't agree with that. I think David's got the gist of it right. The doctors are trying to tell us what to do to keep us all safe. And the sooner we get through this, the sooner, we're done. Maybe you can't do anything about it, man. People want to be free and people do not want a government forcing them to do things no matter what. Even if it means they're going to take serious risks. You won't see me doing that. But I understand why people are. As we move forward in this, and we see more and more people, farmers dumping food going dry. The risk is ever increasing. But I will end this with some relatively good news. I did briefly mention this. Santa Fe, New Mexico reports from farms to food banks. New initiative seeks to benefit food growers as well as the hungry. The problem right now, farmers are destroying food, dairy, crops, and food banks need food. The idea is let's get that food from the farmers to the food banks. There is that will be the next Band-Aid. Unfortunately, it's a Band-Aid. You see, as long as the economy isn't running, how will the farmers then get more food? They grow it, but they require resources to grow it. So for now, there is some good news. We're not at the ship is not going down just yet. It is sinking. We are in trouble, but this is an effort that will slow it. My bigger concern here, and the general premise behind this whole segment, is if we see the government come in and start delivering the food to the food banks, you've now got millions of people tied, dependent completely upon government for their food. They'll never protest. But if the government can't deliver food, which will happen because this can't sustain itself, then people will. And it'll be interesting to see because communism doesn't work. The idea that the government can run the economy, it's just not possible. They don't have the computational power to do it. That's why capitalism makes more sense. Everyone decides what they need and invests their energy into things they need. They can freely buy the goods that they need. This is the breakdown. It's not going to end tomorrow. I don't know when, but I'll tell you what, man. With food plants shutting down, they're saying 18 months. I don't think we can last that long. It's been, what, a month here in the U.S.? And it's already gotten this bad? ATVs and motorcycles speeding down the street, people getting arrested? Yeah, I hate to see what'll happen on month 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You get it. I hope you've taken precautions. I'll leave it there. Next segment will be coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel, and I will see you all then.